and welcome to this week's episode of the Mandala Effect podcast. I'm your host, Rosanna Croft. If we haven't met before, then thank you for tuning in. And to all of our regular listeners and viewers, thank you so much for your ongoing support. I'm blessed this week to be joined by Kyle Cease. You are in for a wonderful, enlightening conversation, so make sure you're comfortable. Kyle is a beautiful soul and somebody who I am very grateful to have in my life. He was my coach last year as I healed from cancer. He was unknowingly my mentor a year prior, and now he's a dear friend. For anybody who hasn't come across Kyle's work before, he is a New York Times bestselling author, a #1 stand-up comedian, a motivational speaker, and a transformational coach, which I can highly vouch for, by the way. He shares incredible spiritual and personal growth content on YouTube, and the work he does helps millions of people throughout the world. He is one of the biggest inspirations for my own work, and I'm thrilled to have him here this week. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I think you're wonderful, and I'm honored to be with you.
Thank you. I wanted to start this by telling you a story, because you may not be fully aware of how I kind of found your work. So a friend of mine sent me one of your videos one day, and so I watched it and consumed all of you and consumed everything I could, actually, about money at the time. I was watching and I think you just released a video with Lewis Howes, and I was consuming everything that you spoke about money. And I'd like to talk about your book in a bit, The Illusion of Money, because I was in a bit of a state financially. And then my life, as you know, took a turn, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And so everything that you taught helped me on that journey. And I had to make a decision one day, and this I see as the start of my spiritual awakening. And throughout my spiritual experience, what you teach has helped me get through and understand a lot of this reality that we're living in and what we're facing. So as I was going through, turning up to chemo appointments, sleeping for hours on end a day, I would listen to your videos while I slept, basically, because chemo does horrible things. Sleeping is a horrendous experience. So I would listen to your videos and they just, I guess, seep into the subconscious mind. And one day I had to make a really huge decision, and I had to decide whether or not I was going to stop chemotherapy early, because I couldn't take it anymore. I was experiencing suicidal thoughts, and I knew intuitively that my tumor had gone. And so I booked a one-to-one with you. And because my friend said, "What would Kyle suggest you did?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." She was like, "Well, why don't you ask him?" So I booked a call with you, and I booked it, but you are so fully booked that it turns out I actually couldn't speak to you for another 6 months. So it was perfect timing, because it actually forced me to make the decision that I knew my intuition was telling me. And I think, we were speaking just before, that you don't always get what you want, but you always get what you need. And in that moment, I needed to listen to my intuition. And so for me, one of the biggest things you've taught me is how to listen to that inner voice. So I wondered if this was a good place to start, because you speak a lot about listening to silence and meditation. And it was actually, I'd started listening to silence more and meditating more. And this is when my life started to kind of descend into chaos. So have you got anything to say on life descending into chaos?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really interesting, because to a lot of people, obviously at one point you're free of that chaos, but at one point the chaos that it's descending into was just your ego's control of your circumstances.
Yep.
Right. So if you like, oh, I got the relationship how I want it, I got my money how I want it, I have these things how I want it, that's great. But sometimes a lot of our things are together the way we want them to avoid a certain feeling or what's under it. Meaning, like, I really want a relationship because I don't want to be alone. I really need money because I have a horrified fear of going broke, or I'm worried my mom will shame me if I go broke, or my dad will hit me or something. And so it's really patterns that kind of keep circumstances together. And I'm not saying don't have good money circumstances or everything, but if it's to cover up something, then the thing that it's covering up will be exposed eventually. And I really believe this time is about getting what's buried inside that you don't want the world to know, or you don't want to look at yourself, out. And so a lot of people have like their circumstances that look a certain way. And then we kind of feel like that just old timey kind of narcissistic parent that is chaos in the house, but they are caring about their image outside of the house and how they look to everyone else. And so that's just control. And in the frequency that we're moving to right now, I believe that basically a lot of us that are doing really big inner work are at a place where control actually makes you feel insane. Yes. Because you're too open up. What you're trying to control is too out of the box. It's too late. Mm-hmm. And so we're moving to a frequency where surrender is actually a higher choice than control. And you got to hear that not as surrender, like, I don't mean surrender like if you see someone about to get hit by a car, don't just go, oh, it's so perfect, and let go of it. But the control really was designed for us in moments like that of fight or flight. And we make it for everything. We make it for how they might think of me. We make it for, I don't know, just things that, if that person leaves me, whatever. And so we try to control that. We try to control them and the image and all these things that we're not. And anything we try to control that we're not keeps us blocked from what we are, right? Yeah. So if I think I'm an image and I'm controlling that, or if I think I'm the relationship and I'm controlling it naturally from wanting to be released or let go of, then I'm blocking myself from the true essence of what I am. And I'm keeping the insistence that I'm just that storyline. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people that have a hard time with my content are people who have circumstances really good. Like if you're a dude that owns 10 Porsches, like I'm very triggering because I'm like, you're not your circumstances. And they're like, I worked this whole life to be this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and you're even more than that. And so, yeah, so life going into chaos is often your access point to freedom. And, yes. I'm not saying you have to aim for chaos, but notice if you're keeping stuff controlled so that you don't have to feel chaos. Like a lot of people have, I want to feel peace, so I don't have to release the chaos that's inside. So I'm going to control everyone and all my circumstances so I don't have to release this chaos that's inside. But on the other side of the release of the chaos is true peace. Yeah. Like actual peace, what you are, versus control-based peace to avoid chaos. Does that make sense?
100%. So what came into my mind then was people who seek enlightenment and, yes. and chase this idea of peace and bliss. Is that escapism? Escaping this idea of chaos that's within, or is it
it depends on if enlightenment's over here.
Yeah.
Or if enlightenment's what you are. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if enlightenment's a future goal, then it's an escape.
Yeah.
But if it's presence, letting everything, someone sent this to me the other day, but it's so true. I mean, moving towards enlightenment is not this high vibe, feeling better and better thing.
No.
It's the release of everything you're not. So it very often feels like death. Over and over and over again. Death of this story, death of this identity, death of this image, whatever. Because enlightenment, is you actually meeting the truth of what you are. Mm-hmm. Right? So, which is here now. And the only thing that's in the way of it is everything you're not that you're grabbing onto. So, it's not this going up higher and higher vibration, wonderful, positive thing. It's like shit, it's just like surrender and depression. And, I'm not saying it has to be, but it isn't only through yay,
No, it's not. And going and sitting and meditating for 300 hours or 3,000 hours isn't going to get you necessarily to enlightenment. You have to face the things that come up from the depths of your soul. It's all the conditionings, isn't it, that how we've been conditioned, past stuff that comes up, and has to be faced, has to be healed. The lesson has to be learned, otherwise it gets more painful if we try and control it.
Well, if you really think about it, this is an analogy I've used many times, but I always think about this. I don't know if you've ever heard my analogy of if we went to another planet and were raised by two 20-foot tall aliens.
Oh, no, I haven't.
So for everyone watching, and imagine that, Rosanna, imagine you and I each sent to another planet.
Yeah.
And there's 20-foot tall, like for a child, a parent is enormous, right? And you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know if you're safe. And as a child, the only thing is about surviving. You're not 5 thinking about thriving. You're thinking about, everyone's bigger than me. I don't know where the hell I am. I don't know how to do so much things, and you don't even know that you don't know that. It's just like, stay safe. Now, imagine if we're just raised by two 20-foot tall aliens for 20 years, and one of them comes home drunk and is loud and violent. And you realize, like, if I speak out, that one hits me or shames me or won't feed me or whatever. And then let's say the other alien, I always use this example, but really likes it when you tap dance.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I would sing. My mom would give me all her attention and tell all the neighbors, like, watch him, he's totally onto him, and whatever. So if we're in another planet and there's like a alien that's just like violently loud, we'd become a pattern that gets quiet. And accidentally we forget that we did that to stay safe from the alien and start saying stuff like, I'm a very quiet person. No. Your protective mechanism was, and now you're identifying with that's you. Mm-hmm. So since you think that's you, that means that making noise is death to you, but you're wrong. It's just actually you moving towards whatever you are. So there's an actual unfolding that we were supposed to have, and then an actual protective mechanism that we're falsely identified with.
Yeah.
And so for us to move into what we are, it's going to feel like total death of the thing that we created as a character to protect ourselves, right? So what's falling off is what seems like this is me, but it's not. And then the pattern has to go through, well, if you let go of this, then you'll be beaten again or shamed, and you have to go through experiencing that you're not. So the pattern like freaks out and is panicking, and it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a dog that had been abused and then it's rescued by someone who's safe. The dog can have like all the energy built in it, and then they'll like slowly pet the dog and it'll be like, and you can tell it's like learning, you're not hitting me. Yeah. But the body has to, on a cellular level, release those patterns. Mm-hmm. So, when we choose certain things that used to seem not safe but are safe, we then have to go through an acclimation period of like, on a cellular level, acclimating to it, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship with people who feel like your parents, right, that's familiar and safe, even if your parents were abusive or narcissistic or dark. If you were to choose someone that's actually safe for you and caring and loving, you have to go through the dog phase of like, you're going to freak out on me. You're going to hurt me. You're going to ruin my life because that's all I know of, So to choose an act of love, in my opinion, is to choose something that your soul wants that your ego wouldn't want. And your ego wants to fix problems, so it needs to find the same problem. But the soul is, this would expand me, and then it will shed ego as you keep staying with it and choosing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense. And this is probably why a lot of people shy away from this. I think deep down, we all know that that we have a soul that we want to connect to, and that we want to fully express ourselves, our true selves. But then this idea and of letting go of the ego, of the identity that we show the world, can be really, really painful for the ego. But this is why so many people shy away and stop, because I think for me, it's interesting because the patterns that I was experiencing 2 years ago almost got put on hold whilst I was ill. So that was a different thing I was healing. And then I didn't face it properly. And so these patterns then come back because I didn't look at it properly. I shied away from it, and I tried to cover up the patterns by earning more money, by becoming more successful. And this is how the ego tries to cover up what's going on.
Yes, totally. There was a thought I had that I can't remember what it was, but it was pretty cool. But also what you said was great too.
Okay, cool.
I give you nothing on that. But yes, it's true. I mean, there's so many ways that the ego can numb a problem versus like actually be transcended, right? So one way is just having a solution before you hear the depth of why the pain is there. So for instance, if you're like, I had this happen this morning, that's why this is fresh for me.
Yeah.
You know, I've been working out a lot and eating a certain way and fasting certain times. And this morning I looked at the scale and it was the same. And the first thing I did was, okay, 90 days of, and immediately like came up with a solution. And I noticed that one area is a solution burying what's under it. And first of all, one thing that's really interesting is with every complication and every challenge we have, there is a revelation and a new world under it. And usually we don't listen deep enough. We just keep going now this way. And this is usually where we pendulum, right? Okay, my solution is if I achieve this thing. And then we kind of look at a goal in the future as an escape from the depth of what it really hurts right now. And so a lot of people go, quite a bit of motivational content was based out of, we'll show them, or if you were bullied or you had parents that say you'd never make it or whatever, this is to fix that. We will show them that. Okay, well, now the core wound is to prove to them, which means that even if you succeed, you've proven to them and you're still declaring that what they think matters, what they think is a thing. So quite a bit of our solutions are us just running away from the core of what hurts. And now I think we live in a time where the light is shining too bright on that, which is why achieving is harder and harder, because it's not your actual desire. In other words, if you've started a project and then quit pretty quickly, if you're like, this is the way to the answer of my life, and then you quit, and then you usually start some type of pendulum opposite of that, and then that doesn't work, and it's just like, this thing, it's like they're all escapes from the depth of what you are. And if you could hear the depth of what you are, the true revelation of the new world that's trying to birth through you would. But if you're like immediately egoically going, okay, I'm going to do this every day until I make $1 million, or I'm going to step into this until I, or whatever, you're escaping the depth of what hurts. And life is going to keep making those escapes now not work too. If you're the type of person that's done enough inner work to understand that, like anyone that's listening to this is probably open enough to see through those kind of make it happen addictive patterns. And what I'm trying to do is just put awareness to what you're already aware of. So you're aware that you're aware of that, Does that make sense?
So much awareness.
Well, you're aware of something, but you don't know you're aware of it.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, I think that what I do for a living is get people to see something that they already knew, but they didn't realize they knew it. They kind of felt alone in their knowing it and thought they should be everyone else. And so I'm getting you, because otherwise I wouldn't resonate, right? But I'm getting you connected to a consciousness that you're already tapped into, but don't get you're tapped into it. So you're overlooking it, and then asking the world who are not at the same consciousness, and then feeling alone and you're wrong all the time.
Yeah. And then when you hear it, like, for instance, when I'm hearing it through your videos, and it just sounds, oh yeah, it's like a remembering. It's not like I'm learning something new. It's like, oh yeah, that's it. That's what I know. And that is just being reflected back to you. Like you say, it's part of this higher knowledge, isn't it? That we all really have access to, but we don't recognize it because not the rest of the world aren't paying attention potentially, or they're not on that part of their journey where they can pay attention. So you mentioned that achievement isn't what we actually want. So what is it that we are looking for if the achievement isn't going to bring us satisfaction?
Well, I think that it actually could for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as you go up in your consciousness and you start to get more connected to what you are, your deepest desire changes. Like, I've achieved a lot of things. I really have. I've had crazy Comedy Central careers and New York Times bestselling author and different things like that. And I can tell you that I now know that hitting those pinnacles doesn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I remember the day we got New York Times bestseller and I was actually depressed about it. Like, it was not a major feeling of good. It was, in fact, part of the problem was I got New York Times bestseller before the book had come out and I realized there were a bunch of mistakes in it. And I was just like, shit, they're all buying it and I don't like the book the way it is. But it was perfect because the book was called I Hope I Screw This Up, and we did. But I've achieved so much, and it's just like that goal is the answer to life. And then you get it. It is the climbing that feels so good. Now, what if your awareness goes up and you start to see through the idea that when you hit a certain amount of money or get the right relationship or whatever isn't going to do it? So at one point, for me, you have to get very clear and become aware of the awareness of a new intention, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm on this planet now to know what I truly am, and I will give up whatever I have to give up to know. If I have to, I'll give up my career because I'm my career. And at one point, my career could even get in the way of my knowing what I am, right? Sometimes I have to hear me, and then I'm like, oh, that's content. Now I'm not hearing me. I'm immediately becoming a teacher with it. And sometimes it goes, can you make this content be for you and not need to get it out? And I those are really hard moments for me because it's like, I get so much love when I put out a video. I get so much attention. And it can be so easy to think that the ultimate life is when you get all that attention. If I get another #1, or I'm known as the best speaker in the world or whatever, now I'm loved on the external so much that I have very little identity or connection to myself at all. It's just, it'd be like winning a jackpot in a casino over and over and over again. Yeah, you're high and you got all the money and people are clapping for you, but you are so disconnected with the true essence of what you are because you're so addicted to that high.
Yeah.
And it's really big to ask yourself what your highest intention is. And I think that some people have an awareness, but not an awareness of their awareness. So they have an intention that's kind of a tier down from where their body's blown open to. So like they might have a deep down thing that says, when I achieve something, I don't feel fulfilled. It doesn't hit it, but they aren't aware that they feel that way. So they might literally have this kind of blown open consciousness, but a belief that their happiness will be when they finally are the #1 business in the world or whatever. Well, you can go achieve that so that you can see that's not the answer and that you're even more depressed when you get there because you were expecting so much. My intention for myself that I'm very clear with, that I sometimes go back and forth between, is to know what I truly am. That's my consciousness. That's my intention. And I've had times in my life where I've said on ayahuasca in meditation, merge me with my soul, no matter what the cost. And it goes, okay, you sure? And I go, yeah. And it goes, because you're not going to like the cost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And then at times it created friends that orchestrated crap around me. And then and I lost people in my life that I really wanted. When I asked that 2 weeks later, COVID started.
Yeah.
And I started going, oh, no matter what the cost, to go, well, I mean, COVID took away my ability to tour. I was about to tour with Deepak and like
Yeah.
was going to be so big as a speaker.
Yeah.
And it goes, you want to know what you are? Okay, we're going to keep you home. I want you to be present. You need to be a way better father because you're not going to live on the road. You want to know what you truly are? You're going to surrender. You're going to talk to God much more. You're not going to just kind of coast on your fame or everyone's attention. You're going to really find what you are. And you need to remember that was your request, because at times I'm just going to take away everything you've ever wanted to escape what you are.
Yeah.
And most people don't have that intention. They have, make me number one, or just get me through this pain, or give me the ultimate relationship, or whatever else. And life goes, okay, I'll give you that. But now you can have that to see that's not it.
Yeah.
It's so many people, when they get what they want, get more depressed,
Yeah. Because there's a inner yearning for something more. And I believe that it is that connection to the spirit within us that has been forgotten.
Yes.
So I think that what I see is that the people that I speak to, everybody is looking for something. I mean, and even using my own experience, I was looking for something more. And similar to you, I didn't quite say merge me with my soul, but I spent more time connecting to myself, and life started to fall away. And
Yeah.
and it does happen. But so that's two examples of two people who have desired a deeper connection, and then their life has started to fall away. And by the way, just in case anyone wondered whose fault COVID was, here we go. It's Kyle's, because he asked to be merged with his soul, and COVID happened. So.
And it's weird, because literally the difference between some people who could be in hell in that time and some people who could be in heaven is what their intention is.
Yeah.
Like, it is the meaning. Like, if you truly are identified with your business or whatever, then that this time could be hell. Like, COVID could ruin your business.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there going, this is merging me with my soul, you're fine if it collapses, right? And it's not denialism. You're actually really connecting to the truth of what you are. And you start to feel this total freedom with yourself, in that everything you really are in it, everything's fine. And in that space, man, it gives you some solutions that are so much bigger. And you start to realize what you lost was worth so much less. Even there's probably more money even in the ultimate version of you, and more love and more abundance and more freedom.
Yeah. And I think that's it. It's the more love and more abundance. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can, that what we think we need can show up in a different way. So if we have, and I think you've already answered the question, but if we have two people with two experiences of we've asked for something more, this deeper connection to whatever, and these things have happened, and that's not necessarily going to make somebody want to connect to themselves or their soul more, so because the ego gets in the way. So how can somebody who is feeling a desire to connect to their soul, to connect to something deeper, but is a bit afraid of what might happen, what advice can you give them?
Well, know first of all, the afraid is not you. Like, all afraid is not you, all of it, right? All of your I'm not seen, all of your then I'll lose this, all of your, like, I know that there's a level where we need money for survival, but when people are really triggered about losing money, it's much more a thing that ties to their childhood. Like, if I don't have money, then mom says, I told you so. If I don't have money, dad says, I knew you'd be a failure. It's never about those things, right? So what I find is that I'm aware that anything that's worried that it could lose something isn't you. In fact, it's really big that could be identified. Let it freak out and then watch it. Remember, you're the one watching, and where you're watching from is not something you can see. Everything you can see is something falling off. So when you're in a deep meditation, you'll see this pattern that says, I'm this much money. Well, if you see it, who's the one that sees it and who's what? Yeah. The one that sees it, where you're seeing from is you, and it's not definable. The place you're seeing from is not definable. What you see is already leaving, right? So this is really, really big to understand, because we think what we identify as us is us, and know that anything that's freaking out isn't you, right? You're much more where you're looking from. So that's one aspect. I think a really big thing is to really take time to listen to silence for a while. You know, as you just did a ton of hours of meditating, like I have to. And some days I feel like I shouldn't today, and I really pay for it. I find that I have to really, really listen to silence and watch as every pattern that in that hour comes up, or 2 hours or whatever. And it freaks out, and it's like going, then I won't be loved by mom, you know, even though my mom's dead. Like, it's like, then I won't be seen, then I won't be enough, whatever. And who's it talking? Like, who is that? And another analogy would be like, imagine you're a caterpillar and you don't understand what a caterpillar is eventually, and what it's taking away is your caterpillar abundance. Yeah. Like, will a caterpillar go into a cocoon if it's richer than shit and everybody loves it and it's getting all kinds of love from other caterpillars? Would it have any desire to go into the cocoon? Right. So maybe it could keep caterpillar achieving a bunch and go, why am I not fulfilled? You know, but eventually part of a reason a caterpillar wouldn't be fulfilled is it's not going to its true essence as a butterfly. Yeah. And even if it's a mess and it's totally broke, you'd rather be a butterfly that can't even fly yet on day one than the greatest of the caterpillars. Yeah. And a lot of our egos are fighting for being the best of the egos and not really meeting the soul. And that's why there's very successful people that are very depressed, because something in them knows that they're more. Yeah. There's something bigger in there, and they're avoiding it because the cage that they live in is full of gold and sweets and everything. So they have no reason to leave the cage. And so if you're like, merge me with my soul, no matter what the cost, it goes, okay, I'm going to take you away from your caterpillar friends and your caterpillar food and your caterpillar travel and your caterpillar restaurants. I'm going to take you away from your caterpillar connection. We're going to put a mask on your face so that you can't talk to people at the store. And you're going to end up being forced to be inward for years. And you'll notice later some gifts and surprises as you access a higher consciousness of cocoons and butterflyness. But, you know, on the way there, it's going to be pretty difficult because your mind is coming up with the best caterpillar solutions as the avoidance of the cocoon, which is totally death to the caterpillar. Yeah.
It's literally caterpillar soup to the caterpillar.
Yes. But if you get you're the butterfly, it's birth.
Yeah. So what do you think the world would look like if it was a world full of butterflies?
I think that quite a bit of us have been forced into our butterflyness, but we're grabbing onto caterpillars. I think there's a lot of butterflies going on. Have you ever heard that thing about the but you don't, or the 4 stages of you don't know, but you don't know that you don't know? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
So there's a thing I've heard about before that are like, there's 4 stages. There's I don't know, but I don't know that I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the second one is I don't know, but I know that I don't know. Okay, so imagine the first one is a total caterpillar who doesn't understand that there's any type of butterfly coming. Yeah. I don't know, but I know that I don't know gets that some of the caterpillars eventually go into a cocoon. I know, but I don't know that I know is I'm either in the cocoon or even on the butterfly side, but I'm still grabbing onto, I want to date caterpillars. I want to eat caterpillar food. I want to, but I think a lot of society is either in the cocoon or on the butterfly side. Yeah. Their problem is they don't know it. No. They're really depressed now. I think that's why there's a much higher suicide epidemic is because so many people are now farther. They're grabbing onto a caterpillar thing, but they're body has been blown open to something beyond their control. It's actually total freedom. And they don't know that. So what I'm here to do is help people get to, I know, and I know that I know, meaning get that you're a butterfly. And what I mean by that is, you know how we know with gender and ethnicity and age and all these different things, it's bad to be prejudiced against another group of people, right? But one thing that's never looked at is people can't help where they are spiritually.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're a butterfly, you can't help that you're a butterfly. And there's no seeing that people that believe a certain thing that are connected to a higher consciousness have a right to feel that way. And it's totally normalized to shame people who are unbelievably awake and aware and conscious and be like, oh, they're just airy fairy, or they're just in their thing or whatever. And it's total abuse because these people don't understand these people can't help that. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
so there's people that are blown open into a very high consciousness and don't understand it. You can't help that you're there.
Yeah.
And you deserve to fly. And you don't have to feel bad that you're disappointing everyone else by becoming what the hell you are. And the world needs you flying if you're a butterfly.
Yeah. And because that will help so many other butterflies emerge from the cocoon, and the butterflies that don't realize that they're butterflies spread their wings and soar.
One true butterfly totally flying could bring so much change on the planet. I mean, according to the Hawkins thing, that can change, one can change the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, if we keep grabbing onto our caterpillar identity and our childhoods that, don't leave me, mom or dad, I'm going to find energies that feel like that. We're not moving into our true essence, and we're going to get really, really depressed, or we're going to be totally free. An analogy I use is like, picture one of the greatest musicians, but they're like addicted to like a community college jazz band. Like take Michael Jackson is in like a crappy cover band. Like imagine how unfulfilled he'd be if he can't Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
He's just going to cover and play a trumpet in some shitty band at a college.
Play trumpet.
Yeah. He's like, I want to do more. I feel like there's more here. And like, okay, someone's full of himself. Someone's too big for his britches, whatever. And we lose out on the gift of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
That's happening times billions on this planet. I think there are people here that have such greatness and masterpieces in them, and it's ready to be exposed, but they're scared to feel lonely for a while because you can't go into the cocoon with anyone else.
No, you cannot. So how do people start to kind of express their full Michael Jackson?
I love that question. I think one is let the attachments that you have to other things that are attachment. One way it's attachment is if letting go of it is painful, right? That's not a calling, right? Like if it's agony for you to break up with a person, right? That doesn't even mean the person can't be in your life. It's just the energy of attachment that's stuck in your body, which is actually based on something under it. So what is it you're attached to? And if it goes away, do you feel like dark pain? If you do, that needs to be seen. Right? That's not a calling. That's not something that frees you. That's, I'm scared you'll go with someone else, or you'll hurt me, or whatever. And so like, if you're like, okay, I'm off social media for a while and I just feel totally depressed, I feel so sad, I feel so lost or whatever. Maybe you should feel lost for a while, and let yourself be lost. Like that's something that wants to be seen. And what those habits are covering up is an inner child that you've been ignoring your whole life. And I believe that the inner child being seen transcends it, and then more butterfly forms.
Yeah, because the inner child carries so much wisdom and so much of our potential. And I think I heard something interesting earlier that was about people scrambling around to find their one purpose in life. And even though we probably don't all have one purpose or this expression that we desire to become, but the inner child, the child that we used to be carries a lot of our pain, but also carries a lot of the answers that we're looking for, in that who you were as a child is probably who you need to be today. And kind of, you know, think of children, they're so innocent and pure and full of love and joy, and when we think about the butterfly, well, is the butterfly pure and full of love and joy? And that's like what we're coming back to. So I'm not going to lie, I do avoid a lot of my inner child.
Well, it depends which one we're talking about, because there is the inner child that you truly are, and then there's what you had to become to protect yourself. Like if a kid is hit, then that kid's doing everything it can to not feel that. So now it's just like, you know, my pattern in that case is like to diffuse people that feel like they have pent up energy, so that I'm not hit, right? So in my body, it's like, okay, if someone feels like they're tense and angry, like my body gravitates towards them to fix it. So I don't know that inner child is what I want to be, because he goes, okay, who's the scariest? Okay, I gotta make sure I diffuse them so I'm not hit. That's how the 5-year-old in my body works, right? And then there's the child that's just, there was a child in me that, you know, would be able to just create on my own a lot, that was very playful, that knew what steps to make on my own, you know? And I think that's the big thing. That's the difference between the first and the fourth stage of the you don't know, but you don't know, you don't know. There's like an innocence of a child, but they don't understand that. Right? They don't have anything to compare it to. Versus the fourth stage, which is you're consciously choosing this higher self and moving into the true aspect of what you are, but you understand so much more now.
Amazing. So everybody who listens to this has full permission to become their full Michael Jackson and spread their wings and become the butterfly.
So we mean the good parts of Michael Jackson, for anyone that. I mean, I can see a couple comments and can we not use Michael Jackson? In the talented aspect of him as a musician.
I mean, I don't really like his music either, so.
Oh yeah? Oh, well, so let's pick another one.
Don't tell anybody.
I won't say anything. We could do You Wonder?
Yeah, sure.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. If we can just go back and edit. Okay, so I would love to just spend a couple of minutes talking about your book, The Illusion of Money. Sorry, I'm covering up your face there. And I really highly recommend anybody who is interested in learning about money, go and read this book. You can tell me and my cat have read it, because my cat has nibbled all the corners of it. Even he's read it back to front. But
you're richer than shit now.
My cat is living the life of a king.
Yeah. Wow. That's a pretty good book.
So I remember when I bought it, and I was with a guy at the time who didn't understand some of the work that I was doing. So I kept it a secret. Anyway, he saw this book and he laughed at me. He was like, oh, The Illusion of Money. Well, what? He was actually an accountant as well. So it really triggered him. But can you just tell us what you mean by the illusion of money?
I'm so glad you're not with him anymore.
It was one of the things that fell away.
Right. Well, I understand that in one way money exists. Actually, even in that way, somewhat it doesn't. In other words, it's just numbers on a computer that can be turned off at any point, right? So you could go, I have a bank account. There's no physical, like if we cashed every bank account and we don't have the gold to match it at all. No. We're literally all just a bunch of paper IOUs that if everyone turned in, there's nothing there. So even in that aspect, it actually is a little bit of an illusion, right? Yeah. So, but at the same time, there's an aspect of money that exists in our mind and our body that has a totally different meaning per person, right? Everyone feels different when they think of money, right? So one person could feel it means freedom. One person could feel it means triggers. It means shame. It means homelessness. It means depression. It means betrayal. Now, if everyone has a different meaning, is money the factor? Like if everyone has a different meaning about money, then it's not money that's the factor. If what we felt about something was right, then we would all feel the same about everything outside of us. We would all agree on the same president or the same politician or the same ice cream, whatever. The factor's us, right?
Yeah.
So how we perceive money has to do with ourselves, right? So even in the positive teachings about money, I find that there's some major shadows. Like for people that say money equals freedom. Okay, that's cool. You're saying you don't. So if money equals freedom, I'm not free, right? But what's the difference between a person who thinks money equals freedom and a person who says I am freedom, right? You got to remember every dollar you've ever made came from you.
Yeah.
So get excited about you because you're way more exciting than money is. You made the dollar, right? You brought it in. Your ideas, your space, your consciousness, your open heart made money, right? So we've trained ourselves to get excited about money. I've always used this analogy with that. I want you to picture that you and I go for a walk in the woods and I round a corner, you don't see where I go, and I find a waterfall, an abundant, ongoing, magical waterfall.
Yeah.
And what I do is I grab a cup and I fill it with water and I come back to you and I go, Rosanna, a cup of water. I don't tell you about the waterfall, the source that it came from. I tell you about a cup of water. You would look at that cup and you would see limitation, right? You go, okay, this cup of water, like do we have enough to pay water rent? We can't donate any of this water. We do, what do we do with it? We have to limit because this is all we have. If you understood you had the waterfall, you'd be like, we are abundant, and you would move that way. And I find how we move matches the abundance that we can receive.
Yeah.
So if you see a limited cup, you're going to move in scarcity too, right? So you're going to cut yourself off from the billion-dollar ideas that are in your body. You're going to cut yourself off from the abundance because life is about saving and not losing, right? If you understood how to look at yourself, that you yourself are the factor of every dollar you made, you are the source of every dollar you made, then you would start to focus on the callings that show up in you and the expansion, and money would become an obvious, very quick byproduct of that.
Yeah.
So if you are the waterfall, you don't see money as a limited thing, and you would move in a place of massive abundance and possibility, and you wouldn't do anything to make money. You do what your soul wants. And I believe that's what makes the greatest artists in the world, the greatest, so ironically, people that are worried about money often cut themselves off from their gifts that make all the money. And life is much more sell it and strategize, and everyone sees through it now. And so you're being kind of manipulative and tricky so you can get money, but you're not bringing all of you to the stage, right? So your actual gifts, if you understood how to connect to the true consciousness of yourself, are worth so much more, right? So I find you access that, one, by meditating and hearing the space here. Two, letting go of the things that keep you believing you're a small, separate self, right? Move towards the things that expand your heart. Cry out every limitation that isn't you. And ask yourself, in certain ways, I still understand that the bills need to be paid, but ask yourself, if money wasn't a factor, what would I do? Yeah. See what happens when you enter the world of an incredible, unlimited consciousness that is so much more expansive. So I'll never forget when I've made a lot of decisions where I actually sacrificed where I could see that I would make a bunch of money for a higher calling, and then made more than the part of me that would have done something that made a lot of money first. Yeah. I remember one time I was doing an event and I was speaking to 1,400 people, and I had this idea with my team that at the end of the event, we'd do a 2-day event. And at the end of the event, we would offer this thing where people could work with me for, I don't remember, 10,000 a person. And we would go to a cabin and take people in groups of 8, basically, and do like a week working with them and do another one. And when you have 1,400 people, you can see I could easily announce that. And then we could block out a year and gross like 80,000 a week to do retreats all year, right? So that was the plan. And I had my team ready to go. And the plan was I was going to do that. And at the end of the event, go run out and meet the audience. And the team would be signing them up if you want to work with me for a week. And I'm sure what I would have offered them would have been amazing and worth more than that. But I was hearing my content throughout the weekend and how if there's a lot of effort, it's not it, and that there's a higher thing forming. And I kept going, and it started calling to me. I don't want to spend a year doing retreats. Like, I don't want to sit with people for a week at a time. And like,
that was the first thing that came into my head when you said that. I was like, oh,
yeah. Even if I could see, like, that would clearly be, probably a few million, right? Something like that. I don't remember what it would have been, but we did the math and saw it. So I heard my content about following this higher thing. And as I kept doing the event, I heard the content that I'm delivering that if I follow through with doing these retreats, I can actually feel the vibrational shrinking, right? So what called to me, the next step was, I'm not going to go out there and meet the people after the event. Like I'm tired after speaking a 2-day event and I don't want to go. So I told a couple teammates, I'm not going. I said, you can go out there if you want. And one of my teammates ran out there and she had forms for them to sign. And they were asking, where's Kyle? Where's Kyle? And there was this like kind of bunch of people there. She got overwhelmed and left. I go to the back room and I see her just sitting on the floor. She's looking really defeated and she's kind of crying and everything. And I was like, are you okay? And she goes, I couldn't stay there. No one signed up for the retreats. And I said, oh my God, we're about to be so huge. And she goes, no, I'm saying no one signed up. And I'm like, I know something bigger is trying to happen. Right. Yeah. So I said, instead of us going to do a retreat, what if we make a trailer out of this event? So now we had the next week free, and I had some teammates over and we made a trailer of that event. And that trailer ended up selling out the next one. Yeah. And then we were all at dinner one day. And I remember a person on my team saying, what do you think ghosts are? And I said, I think they're energies that don't let go. And that's why they're always in the house they used to live in and stuff. And they can't surrender. So they're in this purgatory. And someone said, you should coach ghosts. And I was like, that'd be funny. And then that came up with a sketch, this funny idea for a sketch called Life Coaching for Ghosts. That came out weirdly in October. So out here, that was Halloween. And then we were like, we should make one for Thanksgiving. So we did a sketch where we had enlightened people arguing at Thanksgiving at the people, but they're all aware. So their arguments are like their own ownership. like if Byron Katie was arguing with someone, it was just like, this family's crazy, but the real problem is my resistance to the fact that. So then that video came out and got 11 million views. Wow. And then I started seeing like, we wouldn't have made these videos and then I watched as my Facebook following went from like 100,000 to 400,000, something like that. Yeah. We got a book deal that became a New York Times bestseller. We went to Broadway in New York and did an event and so we grew in a much more fulfilling way by me surrendering the instant guarantee for money. But that made a foundation that made way more money, but I didn't care. It was just the match to my letting go of a way that was a tangible way that I could see would make money. So in my surrendering of my guarantee of money, the universe goes, thank you. And it made room for a stronger me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so much sense. So much sense. And I think what I take from this is that the more that we can listen to the voice within that we try and avoid, or the ego tries to cover up and numb us with the pleasures in life, the more that we listen to that authenticity and the more that we allow ourselves to become the butterfly in its fullest capacity, something bigger that is meant for us will be birthed through us. Yes. And that is the magic of going through the crying out the ego stuff, crying out the patterns, healing the inner child's trauma, everything that you perceive or the ego perceives as pain and this illusion. If the more we can do that, the more we can step into this magical life that awaits us.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like really think of this question for everyone watching. What are you really? If you don't have the patterns, if you're not trying to keep something going, if you're not in a job you don't like, if you're not in the relationship you don't like, if you're not entangled in what will they think, what are you really? And have we ever seen what we are fully expressed and seen and heard? And most of us haven't. We've just stayed patterns our whole life, And Jim Carrey says, at one point, every person has a choice. You can choose between letting go of what everyone thinks of you and being who you truly are completely and seeing what you truly are. Or you can bury who you truly are and go to the grave grabbing on to what you never were.
Well, there we go. I think that is the perfect end point for us, and an amazing contemplation point for everybody listening to this. Who are you really, and who are you going to allow yourself to become as you kind of move forward throughout life? You don't know when you don't know how long you have on this planet. So when are you going to step out of your cocoon? Kyle, thank you so much for joining me. This has been a beautiful conversation. It's so nice to see your face again. I would love for everybody to go and check out Kyle's content on YouTube. He has an amazing community called the Absolutely Everything Pass, which I am a part of and have been for a couple of years. And there are calls almost every day, depending on what you're looking for, but it all helps in your evolution on this spiritual path with your growth, your personal development, whatever it is that you're looking for. Do you want to share a bit about your community and what you're up to?
Yeah, we have, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, we have a thing called the Absolutely Everything Pass. It really is where I put all my heart and priority now, and it's awesome. I mean, there is a live event, as you said, almost every day now. So there's a Sunday call, which is like a guided meditation. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have a thing called It's Totally Possible, where people show up and go into rooms and riff what's totally possible with other people. Wednesday night, I do a Q&A and help people shift. And then now on Fridays, we've added a hot seat, which is where you watch me work with a person for an hour and a half, basically, and you see all these things you didn't know you needed to know about yourself. And there are so many benefits of this because it helps you move to a higher frequency. It helps you just see that it's okay to be a butterfly. You lose a lot of your addictive patterns, and people are making much higher decisions. So it's creating just a totally different life that we almost don't even know about the life that we've avoided by doing this work. And one of the things that I hear a lot from people is it would cost me so much more to not have the Absolutely Everything Pass. People say, like, I can see how many decisions I would have made, or yeah. And, that we're here really on this planet to do this. There's an aspect of doing the work, and we're in the work always, but like, I believe that there is such a fulfilling thing that's happening for us if we really face the true essence of what we are. And that's kind of the purpose of the Absolutely Everything Pass. I think that there's too much content that's too one way, like, oh, you're just supposed to make these steps or do this thing, and everybody's different. And so what the Absolutely Everything Pass is here for is to help you get that you actually are connected to your highest way, and not just go, oh, the 9 steps to marketing are this and this and this, and that you have a unique, crazy, powerful masterpiece that's inside of you. And that's what the Absolute Everything Pass is like, basically for you to feel external permission for the things you were overlooking that were the highest callings in your body. And for the public, it's been $79 a month, but right now you can get a whole year for $299. And I bet you in 2 weeks, you'll have that money back. Like,
yeah,
because one thing we love is that, I mean, I guess this is different for different countries, but in America, it's on Friday nights. and we do a call on Friday nights. So people choose to watch that and be in a community versus go get drunk somewhere. And I just like think of all the mistakes you didn't make by staying and how many calories you didn't eat and alcohol you didn't give to your liver.
I was going to say, I'm no hangover.
No hangover. No, who am I waking up next to? No, I can't believe I got that drunk. No, I overate. I knew I was full. Like people have this amazing opportunity to just stay home and then grow and learn all these things and then go to bed early.
Yeah.
So, these kind of changes are that, I mean, you can just feel, well, there's $100 saved right there by staying home.
Yeah.
And that instead. So, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And the calls give you, it's almost like, because your thing is you're evolving out loud, and you evolving out loud and you speaking to all of these other people within the community, it does help give other people permission, so to speak, to step into something higher and something greater, and that they can be different.
Well, the content is constantly growing, right? So that's how there's like 1,000 hours of content available on the
Ridiculous.
thing. And so I have to be changing. Otherwise, the content would just be the same thing each week, or here's another strategy to making money or whatever. But after this is happening, I'm starting to realize, God, one thing that's amazing is we can discover every second is content. Yeah. Like any person I bump into at the store that tells me a dilemma in their life, immediately right after they leave, I go into the parking lot and grab my phone and make a short out of, what just happened, what I heard their problem was, and then what the solution was. So there's content every second. You start to learn how to listen to the now, and that it's offering you everything you need.
Yeah. It is definitely, and interestingly, and we will wrap up now, we had this butterfly conversation in one of our calls last year, and it is actually it inspired one of the chapters in my book. So there you go. So that is my learning, and my learning, turning that into content in my book, all off the back of this. And then we go and speak about it today. So,
and you did such a good job.
I did such a good job. It's called The Butterfly Side.
Yeah, but that's your book?
That's the chapter in the book. Yeah.
What's the book? I forget. You should plug your book.
It's currently the working title is Living Fast, Trying Not to Die Young.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love it.
Watch this space. Kyle, thank you so much. I don't want to take up any more of your precious time. I really appreciate this. And I know that I'll put all of the links where people can connect with you in the description below. Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you too. Yeah, I'm so proud of you for doing so much work. It inspires me. You went to this major meditation thing and you look so clear and feel so free, and it's just very inspiring. So good job. And thank you. I love you too.